Welcome back to CARAHCAST, the podcast from Carasoft, the trusted government IT solutions provider. Subscribe to get the latest technology updates in the public sector. I'm Anthony Jimenez, your host from the Carasoft production team. On behalf of Juniper Networks, Dell Technologies, and Carasoft, we would like to welcome you to today's podcast, focused around data center security. Greg Bensiman, Data Center Architect, David Allman, Enterprise Solutions Architect, Scott Raban, Consulting CTO, will discuss the intricacies of establishing and managing boundaries within data centers and IT infrastructures in the era of zero trust.
Welcome, everyone, this afternoon. We're glad you're here with us. We're here today to talk about what zero trust is doing to impact IT infrastructure, especially in data centers. We use the term zero trust fairly loosely, but there are underlying mechanisms that product providers and solution providers like Dell and like Juniper use to enforce zero trust architectures. And Greg, Dave, and I are going to have some interesting conversation on that front today. Let's introduce our panel today. Dave, can you go first, please?
Absolutely. My name is David Allman. I am an enterprise architect at Dell under the federal group and under which the strategic programs group specifically. Tell you what we do is we augment BD and capture from a technical perspective. I cross over all of the Dell portfolios as a company, but also all of our OEM partners, all of our strategic partners, and support Dell Federal from a global perspective.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And Greg?
Yeah, I'm Greg Bensiman. I'm with Juniper Networks. I am a data center architect out of the Cloud Ready Data Center business unit at Juniper, usually attached to the U.S. federal government. I was a federal SE with Juniper for a number of years before I took this role. My job is really one right now of being an overlay and supporting the account teams, working through sales motion, but also helping with design and making sure that what we present to customers really is the best solution for their needs. Over the course of years, I've done lots of things. I've been experts at everything in Juniper at one time or another. The last decade or so has been data center, but I've got background in WAN and security and just about everything that Juniper's ever touched.
Great. Good to hear how you both fit in here. And, it's been a real pleasure working with you both and getting ready for this. Let me start out with some framing thoughts on zero trust and its impact on the data center. On one hand, I'll make a statement that might be a little controversial. Zero trust isn't strictly zero trust. There is a chain of building blocks that go into any system in IT, in networking, in data center infrastructure, where we are trusting elements and certain mechanisms, here on Juniper equipment and on Dell equipment and the software that runs on their systems. And we view them as trusted. We accept them as trusted. So in a sense, zero trust is a helpful simplification that makes a specific point. We used to talk about perimeter security and be very comfortable with, as long as I can control the edges of my network and the edges of my infrastructure, I'm going to be just fine. And that's not adequate anymore. That's a concept that's gone by the wayside. So we need to do some things differently to accommodate this critical change and be ready and secure our infrastructure. All that being said, today we want to discuss the specific impacts in the data center and those contracts that are used to establish boundaries that support zero trust. We'll talk a little bit about how Dell and Juniper specifically support mechanisms and work together to provide holistic solutions here. As we were preparing for this discussion, it also became clear that we can't ignore the topic of artificial intelligence and how that's impacting data center infrastructure and growth. It's a critical emerging topic. We'll see how the conversation goes today. We'll get into it as much as we can. If we focus on the topic of zero trust first, Dave and Greg and I have all seen this as an issue in all the systems and customers we engage with. So let's dig in here first. Generally speaking, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on zero trust? Greg, we'll give you the floor first on this.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. I think the thing we need to remember about zero trust is that it takes a pointedly, endpoint-centric view of the network. The principles are generally sound, I think, particularly for environments where you don't own the entire infrastructure, pure public cloud or hybrid cloud. The ideas about how we protect data confidentiality and integrity, both at rest and in transport, how we authorize and control access to resources, applications, data, that's all critically important. And I like that we're driving those requirements out of the network and into the endpoints themselves. That's important from a security envelope perspective, of course, but also from a performance and scale perspective.